Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're not just skimming the surface. We're going all the way down the rabbit hole.
All the way down.
And honestly, I think we might ruffle some feathers today.
Ah,
We are looking at a book that calls itself Dangerous.
it does.
And after reading through this stack of notes, I think the author might be right. We're unpacking ancient good wives' wisdom. How to
Right.
Become a Wife from the Masters and Matriarchs of Old by Conrad Riker.
Mm,
Before we even get started, do me a huge favor. Hit that like button and subscribe.
please do.
If you want us to keep bringing you these deep dives into the topics that, actually matter, that support is crucial.
It really is. And you use the word dangerous, which is exactly how Riker frames this text in his preface. He's not writing this to be liked.
Not at all.
He explicitly states that if you're comfortable with the modern narrative, if you think the current state of gender relations is just fine, you should probably put the book down right now.
Yeah, he's basically saying this isn't for you.
Exactly. This is an ultra-long, incisive look at what he argues is the collapse of civilization. And not from climate change or war, but from the destruction of the natural order between men and women.
That is a massive claim. Civilizational collapse usually makes you think of zombies or like nuclear winter, not gender roles.
Right. But Riker's premise is that we've been sold a massive lie.
Okay.
He argues that our institutions, universities, HR departments, the courts have been captured by feminists and Marxists.
And the result, he says, is a world that's hostile to men and paradoxically miserable for women.
Exactly. He calls this book a weapon for those willing to face hard truths.
So if you're trying to understand the history of our institutions before they were, as he puts it, captured, you need to pay attention to this one.
You really do. And look, if you want the full map we're discussing, because we can only cover so much in this dive, you need to check Amazon, Kindle, and Google Play Books.
Right now.
Right now. Buy the ebook. It's a dense read, but worth it if you want to see the primary source data he's pulling from.
All right, let's get into the meat of it then. Section 1 is what he calls the unvarnished truth. He starts by just dismantling the modern idea of womanhood. We hear this phrase all the time. You can have it all: the career, the travel, the family.
Riker seems to think this is not just optimistic, but biologically false. He calls it a bill of goods.
A bill of goods.
The central argument here is biology versus ideology. Riker argues that modern culture tries to negotiate with biology like it's a contract, but nature doesn't negotiate.
And he brings up the fertility clip.
Yeah, and we've all heard of the biological clock, but Riker pulls up a 2018 CDC study that is, it's pretty terrifying. He treats it with a level of statistical harshness that most people avoid.
I have the numbers right here in the notes. The study says women who delay childbirth past age 35 face a 40% higher risk of infertility
40%.
and double the risk of chromosomal abnormalities. But plenty of people will hear that and say, well, science is advancing. We have IVF.
We have options.
Right. Does Riker address that tech optimism?
He does, but he dismisses it as coping. He argues that relying on medical intervention to bypass natural windows is a gamble that, well, it often fails.
And he uses a very specific anecdote to illustrate this. The Chicago litigator.
Yeah.
This story really stuck with me. Can you paint the picture for us?
So she's a woman who did everything right by modern standards. She has the power suit, she made partner at a top law firm, she traveled the world. She is the definition of success in 2024.
The absolute pinnacle.
But this story describes a moment at age 42 where she just breaks down in a department store. She's looking at a baby stroller.
And it hits her.
And she realizes that no amount of litigation or corporate bonuses can buy back the fertility window she traded for her career.
That's the entropy concept he mentions, isn't it?
Right. Entropy is basically the tendency of systems to decline into disorder. Riker applies this to biology.
You can be the CEO, you can have the corner office.
But entropy doesn't care about your LinkedIn profile. Your biology has an expiration date. He calls this the lie of modern womanhood, the idea that a career can fill the void that biology creates.
And he connects this void directly to social media, which I found fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about princess syndrome or main character disease.
Yeah.
I feel like we see this every time we open TikTok.
It's a huge part of his critique. He argues that platforms like TikTok and Instagram have created what he calls a dopamine trap.
A dopamine trap.
Essentially, women are getting hits of validation from strangers, likes, comments, views that mimic real human connection but have zero depth. It's empty calories for the soul.
It's the difference between eating a steak and eating a bag of sugar.
Exactly. And he says the Jezebel archetype thrives in this environment. We'll get into the archetypes more later, but here it means seeking attention through drama, provocation, and victimhood.
Instead of building a home or a real relationship.
Right. If you're the main character, everyone else is just an NPC, a non-player character in your story, including your husband.
That's a chilling way to put it. Treating your spouse like a background character in your own movie.
He even mentions a study about this, about sharing relationships online.
What were the numbers on that?
This is a wild statistic. He cites data suggesting that women who regularly shared details about their relationships online were 47% more likely to divorce.
47%. That is huge.
It makes sense if you follow his logic, though. It's like the performance of the relationship eats the actual relationship.
You aren't present. You're just performing for an audience.
Exactly. Riker suggests a 30-minute digital fast as a cure, but he admits the deeper issue is an addiction to validation.
And this addiction bleeds into how women interact with institutions.
Which brings us to one of the most controversial sections of the book, the capture of institutions.
Yeah, let's unpack this. He uses a term here that, well, it's provocative, the Karen Commissariat.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't mince words. Commissariat is a reference to Soviet political officers who enforced ideological purity.
And he's arguing that human resources departments have been weaponized.
That's his argument, that they aren't neutral administrative bodies anymore, they're ideological gatekeepers.
But isn't the counter-argument that HR exists to protect employees from harassment, to make the workplace safer?
Riker would argue that safety has been redefined to mean emotional comfort rather than physical safety. He talks about tone policing.
Tone policing.
This is where a man can be punished or fired not for being wrong or for poor performance, but for being too direct or assertive.
What used to be called leadership.
In the past, yes. Now it gets labeled as toxic masculinity. It's a way of enforcing conformity using emotional language. If you make someone feel unsafe with your tone, you are the problem, regardless of the facts.
So a woman's subjective feeling trumps objective reality.
Precisely. And Riker argues this goes way beyond the office. He goes deep into the collapse of due process in the legal system in universities.
He brings up the Duke lacrosse case.
And the Jackie Rolling Stone hoax at UVA.
For listeners who might be younger or just don't remember the details, can you recap the Duke lacrosse case? Why is that his go-to example?
It's the archetypal example of the system failing. In 2006, 3 members of the Duke University lacrosse team were falsely accused of rape.
Yeah.
The media, the university faculty, and a rogue prosecutor just destroyed these young men's reputations before a single shred of evidence was verified.
And it all turned out to be false.
It turned out the accuser had fabricated the entire story, but the narrative, privileged men hurt vulnerable women, was so powerful that facts didn't matter.
Riker points out that the Believe Women slogan, while sounding empathetic, becomes dangerous when it bypasses evidence.
It creates a guilty until proven innocent culture.
Yeah.
He cites a statistic from FIRA.org, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, stating that false sexual assault allegations in universities have risen significantly.
And in many dismissals, there are 0 penalties for the accuser.
Right. It creates a landscape where a man's life can be ruined by a whisper. Riker calls it the he said, she said trap.
It's a heavy section. But what's interesting is that Riker doesn't just blame the institutions. He looks at the psychology inside the women who do this.
Yes.
He introduces this concept of the Bluebeard voice. Now, Bluebeard is an old folktale about a guy who kills his wives.
Right. But Riker uses it metaphorically. He describes the Bluebeard voice as a specific pathology, an inner animus, or a voice of paranoia inside a woman's head that whispers lies to her.
It's a self-destructive mechanism.
Exactly. It tells her that her partner is an oppressor, a suspect, or a cheat, even when he isn't.
So it's projection.
It's extreme projection. There's a story he shares about a woman who was so consumed by this Bluebeard voice, telling her that her husband was having an emotional affair.
What does she do?
She installed tracking software on his laptop. She monitored his every keystroke.
And did she find anything?
Nothing. He was just working. But the act of installing the spyware, the breach of trust, that is what destroyed the marriage. The paranoia created the very breakdown she was afraid of.
Wow. That's a perfect segue into section 3, the shadow. Riker argues these aren't just random psychological glitches, they are archetypes. He identifies 3 destructive ones, Kali, Lilith, and Jezebel.
We need to define these clearly because he uses them as shorthand throughout the rest of the book.
Okay, let's break them down. First, Kali.
Kali is the destroyer. In Hindu mythology, she's a goddess of time and death. But Riker uses the term to describe a woman who weaponizes chaotic emotion to burn everything down. She thrives on conflict.
Okay, so Kali is the scorched earth policy. What about Lilith?
Lilith is the rebel. In folklore, she was Adam's first wife who refused to submit.
He links this to the girl boss trap.
Right, the woman who refuses to integrate into a family structure or respect male leadership. She gains independence, but the cost is isolation.
And finally, Jezebel.
Jezebel is the manipulator. She uses seduction, lies, and social maneuvering to control men. She's the one who performs the damsel in distress act to get what she wants, or uses sex as a weapon.
Riker argues these aren't just ancient myths, they are active psychological patterns.
Yes, and he connects this to how women interact with each other. He talks about the witch and the hive mind.
This part was honestly chilling, the idea of gossip as social grooming.
It's a critique of female intersexual competition. He calls it the crab bucket mentality.
You know, where if one crab tries to climb out, the others pull it back down.
Riker argues the hive mind does this to women. If a woman decides to step out of the modern narrative, say, she decides to be a traditional wife, she quits her job, she decides to serve her husband.
The hive mind attacks her.
Immediately, she's letting the side down, she's a trad wife, or internalizing misogyny.
He draws a parallel to the Salem witch trials here, doesn't he?
He does. He argues Salem wasn't just about superstition, it was mass hysteria driven by young women accusing others to gain power and attention.
A way for the powerless to suddenly hold life and death power over their community.
And Riker sees the exact same mechanism in modern cancel culture. It's a way for the hive mind to enforce conformity.
So if that's the problem, the captured institutions, the biological denial, the destructive archetypes, what on earth is the solution?
Because the book isn't just a complaint list.
Right. Section 4 offers a specific path. He talks about the anabolic wife versus the catabolic wife.
This is the core concept for his solution. Think of it like metabolism. Catabolic means breaking down consuming energy, destroying muscle.
So the catabolic wife is the modern archetype.
Yeah.
She consumes resources. She demands entitlement. She breaks down the family structure.
And anabolic.
Anabolic means building up, creating muscle, synthesizing order.
The anabolic wife is the traditional model. She takes raw materials, a house, a salary, a relationship, and builds something stronger and more complex out of them. She sustains life.
But here's the part that is going to be a hard pill to swallow for a lot of listeners. To be anabolic, Riker argues you need obedience.
Yes, and he knows this is radioactive today, but he flips the script on submission. He argues that obedience isn't weakness, it's a high-level strategy for influence and legacy. He uses the Spartan women as the ultimate example.
I love this quote. It's when a foreign woman asks a Spartan queen, "Why are you Spartan women the only ones who can rule men?"
And the queen replies, because we are the only women who give birth to free men.
Wow.
Riker's point is that by aligning with the natural order and supporting the husband's leadership, the woman actually gains immense power. She ensures the survival of the lineage.
He also calls this the Penelope principle, referring to Odysseus' wife.
Right. While Odysseus is off fighting wars and battling monsters, Penelope is at home, weaving and holding the estate together, fending off suitors.
Yeah, it looks passive, but it's incredibly active.
She is the anchor. Without her, Odysseus has nothing to come home to. Riker argues the modern world has lost the value of holding the fort.
Let's get practical, though. Philosophy's great, but Riker gives some actual tests for men and for women to check itself.
Yes.
The sync test is my favorite. It sounds ridiculous, but explain why it matters.
The sync test is brilliant because it cuts through the main character noise, Riker argues. Imagine it's midnight and the kitchen faucet bursts.
Okay.
A charismatic man, the guy who is fun at parties, the guy who takes you on a flash trip to Bali for Instagram photos, he might be useless here.
Right.
But the man who gets under the sink at 12 a.m. without complaining and fixes the leak, that man is anabolic. He builds and maintains.
So stop looking for the spark and look for the plumber.
Essentially, yes. Look for competence and duty. He also has the 3-job rule.
What's that?
If a man has held 3 steady jobs by age 30, he is statistically less likely to divorce. It shows he can handle boredom, authority, and routine. That's what a marriage is mostly made of.
And for the women, he has the mirror test.
This is the self-audit. Riker argues that many women unconsciously channel their mother's toxic scripts. The nagging, the disrespect, the bluebeard paranoia.
So the mirror test is?
It's literally looking in the mirror during a conflict and asking, is this me? Or is this the programming I inherited? You have to break the generational curse.
And if you do break that curse, if you become anabolic, where does it lead? What is the end game? Section 5 is about the matriarch.
The matriarch is the destination. Riker says the goal isn't to stay a maiden forever, which is what modern culture obsesses over with anti-aging and clubbing at 40.
The goal is to move from maiden to mother to matriarch.
And the matriarch isn't just an old woman. She has a function. She is the immune system of the family.
He cites studies showing that grandmothers are actually better at detecting lies than parents are.
They have this accumulated wisdom that guards the family against ideology and chaos. They can see the threats coming before anyone else.
He contrasts this with the child-free movement. He specifically references the Sampo generation in South Korea.
Yeah, Sampo refers to giving up 3 things: courtship, marriage, and childbirth. South Korea has the lowest birth rate in the world.
And Riker views this as
Civilizational suicide.
Yeah.
He's very clear. True power isn't in a corporate title or a bank account. It's in raising a lineage that survives you.
it's a stark choice. If you don't have children, if you don't pass down values, your civilization literally ends with you. The matriarch is the one who ensures the tribe continues.
Exactly. Riker is saying the world is burning metaphorically and culturally because we abandon discipline, duty, and natural law. Ancient good wives' wisdom is a map back to stability.
But he warns it's a narrow path.
Very narrow.
It demands that you reject the easy dopamine of modern culture, the likes, the victimhood, the boss babe narrative, and choose the harder work of building a fortress for your family.
It's about choosing to be anabolic in a catabolic world.
Before we sign off, I want you to think about that sync test in your own life. It's a metaphor for everything we've discussed. Are you chasing the fireworks of a chaotic relationship, the drama that feels like passion? Or are you looking for the person who will get up at midnight to fix the leak? Are you building a fortress or just watching the sparks fly?
That's the question that determines the future.
If you want to go deeper into Conrad Riker's work, and there's so much more in the text that we could cover, you need to follow him.
Where can they do that?
Go to @ConradRikers at Substack for more of these insights. And seriously, if you want the full text, check Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books right now to purchase Ancient Good Wives' Wisdom. It's a weapon of a book.
Definitely.
Thanks for diving deep with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support the show. We'll see you the next one.